Week 7 is upon us, and there are a ton of injuries, ton of opportunities for you guys to buy some players. We do have a couple of trade targets for you, 5 buys, 3 sells, and a couple of reissues. First, we're going to talk about the reissues. Ravens players that are on buy right now, Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, and Zay Flowers, all still good trade targets we've talked about in weeks past. Jahmyr Gibbs, I talked about last week, still a very good trade target coming off of a down week. Travis Hunter, usage is back up. Good upside piece for those of you guys that are contenders, and Saquon Barkley chained together a couple of bad weeks in a row. Do you want to talk about any of those guys a little bit more, or do you want to just go right into our guys?
I think we can go into our guys. On the inverse, though, I will say we talked about, for example, a guy like DK Metcalf as a sell in recent weeks. He obviously has another big fantasy week. If you can sell him high, maybe get wide receiver 2 level price tag, you can go and try to sell him on the market as well.
For sure. So let's get into the first guy. And Danny may or may not have already purchased this guy.
And yeah, I'll spoil the deal because apparently every other channel in the Flock League just likes spoiling Flock League content. Like we have Mason on his live stream reading out the names of the players involved in the trade. We have Zach every Monday posting the context of his matchup before it's released. I will give you guys this for free. If you are an FSC subscriber, here it goes. Flock League, I end up making this deal with Zach. He's desperate. He's a 2-4 team. I go and buy Puka Nacua. I give him Drake London. I give him Jaden Daniels. He gives me Puka Nacua, Bam Knight, and $7. And you might be looking at this thinking, well, Danny, Jaden Daniels is a stud. Drake London obviously coming off of 2 big games. Why would you trade those guys at the peak of their powers for an injured player in Puka Nacua? Because not often does a guy like Puka Nacua even become available in your league. And this is a plea. If you're 6-0, if you're 5-1, 4-2, even if you're 3-3 and maybe you're top 5, top 6 in points scored in your league, dude, if you can get Puka Nacua added to your roster going forward, you need to inquire. Because with Puka Nacua, we do have this report from Deepak over on Twitter that the injury he sustained in week 6 could range from him playing in week 7 to him maybe being back about week 9 is about the expectation. We do see the 3 potential injuries he suffered. We do have the left-footed ankle. It says if it's a low ankle sprain, he could play week 7. No concerns about his ability on the field. If it's a mid-foot sprain, we're looking at about a 0 to 1 week recovery time, aka he would be back in time week 9 after his bye week. And then if we get a little bit worse news, it's a high ankle, maybe a mild capacity, we're looking at about a 1 to 3 week recovery time. But we already have a quote from Sean McVay labeling Puka Nacua day to day. So that has me more optimistic on his timeline. And look, the only reason why this guy's even available is that he left last week's game early, because we're talking about legitimately 2019 Christian McCaffrey, 2021 Cooper Kupp, 2020 Alvin Kamara, 2006 LaDainian Tomlinson. If I told you at the peak of those powers in those seasons, if you can trade for those players, you wouldn't ask how much would you have to give up. You would say, no, give me the player that can end up winning me my league, not only winning me my league, but can be a legendary level player. Puka Nacua, prior to going down, was on pace for the 4th best fantasy football season of all time, and he was scoring every other player in fantasy by over 2 points per game. Christian McCaffrey, great year, 24.8. Puka Nacua was averaging nearly 27 points per game in weeks 1 to 5.
Yeah, he's a monster. If you are doing yourself a disservice if you're 4-2 or better and you don't currently have Cooper Kupp on your team, or Cooper Kupp, he might as well be Cooper Kupp. If you don't have Puka Nacua on your team, you should be going and sending out offers for him, because like you said, especially if you're in an 8 or a 10-man league, man, like I would give up 3 starters to go get Puka Nacua in an 8 or a 10-man league. But yeah, the deal that you made, I'm really surprised that people in the league think that you lost the deal, because given the league market that we have, Jaden Daniels is great, but he's one of like 8 to 10 quarterbacks. Exactly. You have Caleb Williams already. He's one of 8 to 10 every week starters. And yes, maybe he's on the higher end of that because of the rushing and stuff, but Caleb Williams has outscored him this year in terms of points per game. So yeah, I think you made a great deal there. I'm really surprised that other people in the league don't. But yeah, more to gain from having Puka Nacua. And I'm kind of scared of your team now that you have Puka Nacua, CeeDee Lamb, and Rome Odunze as your top 3 receivers. And a lot of people should be.
Well, that's the exciting thing, because, again, we do have the tweet from Coach Speak Index, 90% reliability rating for Sean McVay when it comes to Coach Speak, and he expects that Puka Nacua will miss no more than 1 game. If I only have to sit out, okay, week 7, sure, probably worse than my chances of winning this week against the Devs. Week 8, already going to be tough. I'm playing Avery, Puka Nacua obviously now on bye. I also had a couple other bye week players. Week 9 on, if you have me on the schedule and you have to play against CeeDee Lamb, Puka Nacua, and Rome Odunze, you combine all those 3 players, you're looking at 65 points per game.
Yeah, and I play you in week 11, which is fun.
Sorry.
But not a great situation for us in the Flock League. You guys are going to see it when the vlog comes out that some people think that Danny lost that trade. And I think by 4 or 5 weeks time, people are going to be like, I can't believe people said that Danny lost that trade because again, Jane Daniels, great asset. Drake London, great asset. I think your team got better.
I do think on face value, I paid probably about the highest premium that you'll actually see an injured asset go for in most leagues. Even if like realistically, could it cost a Doomsday plus Caleb stack right now if the guy's 1-5 right now? Like people will be panicking even more than when Zach was. So if you can capitalize for less than I paid, all the power to you. I'd be willing to even overpay if I have to get it done.
Yeah, like you could see some of the deals here, like Alvin Kamara, Debo Samuel, Dallas Goedert for Puka. And like, even if that was just for Puka, I would do that, let alone the other assets that got dealt in that deal. Josh Jacobs, Adams, Skattebo for like even one of these other guys in Puka is such a steal. So yeah, there's people panicking out there right now. Oh, yeah. And it's weird because you think people who have Puka Nacua probably not in a 2-4 or worse situation, but some people are, right? If they didn't draft well
injuries,
after Puka Nacua, they definitely could be in a rough situation there. Maybe they paired him with neighbors or something and he went down for the season or whatever. So yeah, definitely a guy that you have to go trade for if you guys are in a winning position. This could be the only buying window that you have the entire season. It might even later in the week, you might not even be able to buy him. Like you might need to buy him ASAP before it gets announced that he's going to play in week 7.
I'm literally not counting out a Thursday or Friday bomb where it's like, oh, Puka Nacua is good to go for Sunday. And in the 2 days you had for a trade window to get him are close shut.
Yeah, exactly. So he's the best trade target, bar none, in fantasy. If you didn't take him, I was going to. Obviously, you were the one who made the trade, so I let you pick him for sure. Quinshon Judkins is a nice trade target for me right now because there's a couple of factors going in his favor. For starters, it's the Browns. Nobody likes the Browns. The second they have a down game, people are like, why do I subject myself to watch this offense every Sunday? The Browns spent more time in 2-minute drill situations and long down and distance than any other team in any other game this season, which is a rare oddity that'll probably correct itself. And we know that as of right now, Quinshon Judkins is the early down running back for the Browns. Jerome Ford, Dylan Sampson, they mix in guys on third down. That resulted in Jerome Ford out-snapping Quinshon Judkins, which probably won't happen for the rest of the season. And he's still a top 12 graded back per PFF, averaging 4.6 yards per carry, the 4th most yards after contact per attempt. And the last 2 games, in my opinion, are the floor of how bad the Cleveland Browns quarterback play will be, because you had Dylan Gabriel in his first 2 starts, who wasn't a very good prospect. We're either going to see better Dylan Gabriel going forward or Shedeur Sanders, who's a better quarterback than Dylan Gabriel. So for me, I think Judkins is a great trade target, especially when you factor in, like I said, he is literally, by all metrics, a top 5 to 10 running back talent in the league right now. Top 5 in yards after contact per attempt, 4.6 yards per carry, and a top 12 graded running back per PFF.
Yeah, workhorse size, 220 pounds. Like, not to mention, like, yeah, this week we didn't see the receiving usage, but we did see against Detroit, for example, 4 catches, 33 yards. Like, I don't think he's going to be a complete zero in the receiving game because the big context here, he is a rookie running back who missed all of training camp basically with the stuff that was going on. I'm not going to talk about the legality of it, but he has a week 9 bye. And Corey, what is one of the big things we've stressed on this channel when it comes to rookies?
Post-bye rookie bump, especially when you're not getting all of the work and you're playing really well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, 4.6 yards per carry on arguably the worst team in the league.
Yeah, and their offensive line has not been good this year, too. It's not like this is, the Browns.
Sampson and Ford right now.
Yeah, historically, the Browns have had a pretty good offensive line the last 5 years or so, but it's old. They're not playing as well as they used to. Their tackles are pretty bad. So I would imagine that the Browns are going to be spending a lot of their draft picks on offensive line talent. But even still this year, Quinshon Judkins has to be considered still, in my opinion, a top 12 to 15 running back rest of the season. And because he plays for the Browns, there's some sell high candidates in the RB2 range. You might be able to get up to him pretty easily.
And it's funny because I was actually in advanced talks with Nathan to potentially acquire him, but I couldn't pull the trigger on the specific deal. If we do end up making a trade, you guys will see the update on it. But the specific deal, I'm sure I think I mentioned to you, I just wasn't able to pull the trigger on.
What were you offering him? I'm just out of curiosity.
So
I'm curious.
The 2-for-2 that he wanted to do was Judkins plus Garrett Wilson for Rome Odunze plus Jalen Warren. But I was trying to work Marvin Harrison Jr. into the deal, and I would give him immediate production because he's doing 4. That's what I'm trying to work right now.
Yeah, he's reached out to me a couple times. Not about buying. I told him I was interested in Judkins, but everybody else I'm not.
He
really
loves Odunze.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that makes a lot of sense. A lot of people love Odunze. But
yeah.
Danny, you can move on to your next trade target because he's also a rookie running back and a guy that we kind of expect to continue to get better usage going forward, because despite fumbling on Monday Night Football, he did actually post a season high in snaps.
Yeah, and I guess he only technically fumbled once because the other exchange was pinned on, I believe, Jaden Daniels as the fumble because it was on a handoff. But regardless, I mean, people watch Monday Night Football. People see the RB38 production, him fumbling one time, messing up another exchange. The thing that I love most in fantasy is capitalizing off of emotion on an island game. Because everybody is up watching this game. Everybody is watching Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt shit his pants on Monday Night Football against the Chicago Bears. But that's to our advantage, man, because he quietly posted the best usage he's had all season. And there's really no debate, man. 67% of the snaps, 71% of the backfield carries. Obviously, now with Tasha an offense we believed in, Washington looked great. Jaden Daniels looked back. He was rushing the ball yet again. I think we could peg Washington as a top 10 level offense. And the schedule is opening up in the next couple of weeks. We get Dallas on deck. We get Miami on deck as a couple cupcakes. And we also get some big time overall over-under type of game environment. So with Bill, if he can continue being, a 70% snap, 60+% backfield carry type of guy, we could be looking at a top 12 to 15 guy rest of the season. And I actually think his market value went down because he had a bad box score.
Yeah. His schedule the rest of the year, other than Seattle in week 9 and Detroit in week 10, like you said, the next couple weeks, he does have some easy matchups. Other than those two, every other matchup for him is an above average matchup for the rest of the year. And he has Dallas in the fantasy championship, which is the single easiest by a country mile to fantasy running backs. So this is a guy that you could definitely count on to produce better. And then week 12 bye, maybe after that bye, he has another bump in usage or whatever. This is somebody I'm not been super high on, but he has really good underlying metrics and he is now finally getting the work.
And full transparency, so you saw the final deal for the Puka Nacua. I ended up getting Bam Knight plus $7. The initial deal that we were trying to work on, and I was trying my hardest to get this done, is I was going to give him Daniels, London, and Jaylen Warren for Bill plus Puka. But he already he told me, he's like, dude, like Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Bill, he's already home. I'm not trading him. He's my guy. And I'm like, okay, fair enough.
It'd be like me trading Puka. Like, you better give me an absolute overpay. That's just not going to happen.
I tried, man. I think Bill could very well win people championships.
He could, yeah. It wouldn't shock me if he did. And like some of the deals, the other thing that you didn't mention too is that the Commanders are probably, had a hobbled Deebo Samuel on Monday night and still don't have Terry McLaurin. He'll probably be back soon.
Yeah, for sure. And if you get those guys back, you're getting more explosive on the boundary. Yeah, we see the least efficient game for Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt this past week, but going into this game, he was one of the top 5 graded running backs in terms of efficiency metrics this year.
Yeah, and some of these deals, you could see Quinton Johnston for Bill is a decent option there. Terry McLaurin for Bill and Ricky Pearsall there. Like, there's definitely deals to be made involving Bill. Jalen Waddle and Hunter Henry for Addison and Bill makes a lot of sense. So definitely a lot of good deals out there for him. And as someone who's notoriously not been very high on this player, I do actually agree with you. I think he is a really good buy right now because we finally did see him get the majority of the work, the majority of the snaps, 71% of the carries, like you said, even despite the fumbles and the mistakes that he ended up making. So hopefully that continues. This is one guy that probably got to plug your nose a little bit if you're going to buy him, but I do think he can be a profitable buy at the moment. T. Higgins has at least 6 targets in 3 of his last 4 games. The Bengals have 7 of their last 10 opponents, ranking bottom half in the NFL among wide receiver scoring allowed in fantasy. Sunday's game against Green Bay was the highest graded PFF passing grade a Bengals quarterback has posted since week 1 when Joe Burrow played. And it was actually basically just as good as Joe Burrow posted in week 1. Grades were like really down. Yards per attempt was really down when Jake Browning was starting. And of course, we know Jake Browning had just a litany of drive-killing interceptions, turnovers that were just completely screwing the Bengals offense. And we saw last week against the Packers, despite a really good defense, despite a really tough matchup, Jamar Chase is able to get there. T. Higgins has an okay game, had an opportunity to score in the red zone, just didn't cash in on it. And Chase Brown looked his best he's looked all season. So I will say that even though Flacco is not a great quarterback, he does appear to be a modest upgrade from Jake Browning. And this is a dude in T. Higgins that is talented enough that if he has functional bottom half of the NFL quarterback play, let's say Flacco's the 23rd best starting quarterback in the league for the rest of the year, he can still be a top 24 wide receiver based on the usage and the talent of the player that we have here. So if you can get T. Higgins using some of these like overperforming pieces the last couple of weeks, like a Kendrick Bourne or something like that, using Kendrick Bourne plus another piece, you could probably get up to T. Higgins. DeAndre Swift was sold for T. Higgins straight up. I think that makes a lot of sense as well. Even in package deals, you could see there Matthew Golden, Wandale, and Rashid Shaheed for Diggs and T. Higgins makes sense as well. Those are the types of trades that I would be looking to pull off for Higgins, because if you have him as like your second flex for the rest of the year, I think you're going to get those big games still.
Yeah, and the thing with Joe Flacco, again, I understand there was volume before, but Browning just simply wasn't playing well. And I do understand as well that Joe Flacco was on a different team this year. But when we look at the overall games that Joe Flacco has started, we're talking about 45 attempts, 45 attempts, 36 attempts, 34 attempts, 45 attempts. Joe Flacco is your standard old school gunslinging quarterback. He's going to stay in the pocket. He's not going to run out of it. You know how many yards on the season Joe Flacco has as a rusher?
Probably like 2.
A little bit more. He's got 13 though. 13 in what is that? 5 starts made. So
yeah. Every Bengals play is a pass, pretty much, because their defense is bad and Chase Brown isn't really running the football very well. So you are going to get a minimum 35 pass attempts per game out of this team. And also, too, like when you're a veteran quarterback and you see a number 5 one-on-one in the red zone, you're going to throw him back shoulder fades and that kind of thing. Like the touchdowns, the spike weeks, the big plays are going to come still for T. Higgins. And it's pretty much been as bad as it can possibly be if you drafted T. Higgins at like the 2-3 turn or whatever. But I do think adjusting expectations, he's probably borderline top 24 receiver, top 28-ish receiver for me rest of the season.
I'd be a little bit lower than that. I would say I'd feel confident putting him in the mid to back end wide receiver 3 area. And then if he keeps doing this, I would be willing to move him back up there. But I have him at wide receiver 34 rest of the season, just behind Ricky Pearsall, Matthew Golden, and Jordan Addison.
Okay, yeah, he's my wide receiver 28, so I wasn't capping when I said 28-ish area. That's exactly where he ranks for me. So I feel pretty good about him. I think he's a good flex option, a guy that you can count on every other game to have a big week. He'll probably be inconsistent because of the offense and the quarterback play, but other than that, I mean, that's what you're getting out of like Devontae Smith, who has like, theoretically a much better quarterback.
Yeah, 100%. But we can move off of T. Higgins. Again, you mentioned you kind of have to plug your nose here. If you can get him for cheap, do your due diligence. He hasn't had the craziest box scores in the first 6 weeks, but maybe we do see some positive regression with Joe Flacco slinging the rock. This is our combined guy. I'll let you take the reins here because otherwise I'm just going to be accused of being biased.
Yeah, I think Nico's a really good buy right now. Yeah. And Danny obviously will agree with everything I say here, but he's just simply too good to be the wide receiver 18 in points per game all season. He's averaging 14.0 points per game. He has a 25% target share on the year. But the thing I'm kind of looking most forward to, and this is kind of like just like ball knowledge 101 in my opinion, is the protection that CJ Stroud has seen this year, where I think we can all agree has been terrible. His offensive line has not played well. But after the bye, we've seen this from other teams. Like the Steelers had protection issues. After the bye, they looked a lot better. The Bears last week had protection issues. After the bye, they looked a lot better. For example, the Bears 70+ pass blocking and 70+ run blocking grade per PFF. That's the first game this season that's happened. That was right after their bye. When you have a lot of new pieces, which the Bears had and the Texans have on your offensive line, it takes a little bit of time for that to gel. And that's kind of why I was always anti-Nico in drafts, is that I thought he could get out to a slow start. And now I think this is a perfect time to buy low on him because the Bears O-line obviously is better than the Texans, but I do think it will be better going forward. With Christian Kirk coming back, maybe Woody Marks more involved as a runner, the Texans offense could be a lot better going forward than it's been so far this season. And other than Seattle this week and Indianapolis in week 13, every other game for them for the rest of the season is a top 20, top 18 matchup for wide receivers. So with Collins, we haven't seen the big plays. We haven't seen the touchdowns. We haven't seen even necessarily the heavy target share games all the time. But I do think we're going to get a lot more consistency out of Nico Collins going forward because I actually just think that the protection is going to hold up. And if they transition to Woody Marks, which I expect them to do going forward, they'll probably run the football and sustain drives a lot better too.
Yeah, and I will give Chubb credit too, because he's quietly at like 4.3 yards per carry this year too. Like I think between him, I do expect Marks to get more usage moving forward. But between Marks and Chubb, like I think they've playing some adequate football. I think going into the year, our expectations for the Texans running backs was a lot lower than what it's been right now. So if that's going to keep rounding out, on top of that, like you said, the Texans protection, it was bad to start the year. The last 2 weeks have actually been the best 2 games for them.
Yeah. No, their protection has improved and they've played some tough matchups. I mean, other than Baltimore before the bye, and that was just such a boat race of a game that, they completely just ran over them. The Rams and the Titans and like the Bucks and like the Jags, those have been pretty good defenses this year, the 4 games that they played before the bye and before the Ravens game. So it's not like they played cupcake matchups, and they do have a much easier schedule going forward.
Yeah, and on top of that, in the 2 games prior to the bye week, yes, it's against Tennessee and Baltimore, but we did see signs of life from CJ Stroud, about 240 passing yards per game in that stretch, 6 touchdowns, no interceptions. Like, if we can get at least a semblance of rookie year CJ Stroud, I think Nico Collins can get back to 19, 20+ point per game upside. But even if we're just getting, let's say, 80, 85% of rookie year CJ Stroud, I still think Nico Collins could be a damn good mid-wide receiver 1.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So those are the buys. And again, we talked about some honorable mentions at the top of this video. Let's pivot into the sells. And you mentioned kind of DK Metcalf, still a good honorable mention sell to get into. But another kind of wide receiver 3 spike week king here that you have listed is Jameson Williams.
Yeah, and I understand the appeal, like especially in best ball. Like I was drafting him a little bit in best ball. You're getting spike weeks, very, very good offense. We project Detroit, top 3 implied total every single week. Like I understand the situation for why somebody will be in on Jameson Williams. But please don't let the situational factors take away from the fact that this guy was borderline unusable for 4 of his 6 games this year. And look, I get it. If you drafted him in best ball, you don't care about week-to-week consistency. But at the same time, if you're playing in a managed redraft league and you're looking at a guy with a body of work of less than 5 targets per game, it's very clear that the Lions view him as number 3 in the pecking order. 17% yearly target share. Like, I get it. The offense will set him up in smash spots. But to me, when I'm looking at Jameson Williams, he's just a ceiling raiser. In games that the Lions offense is struggling, Jameson Williams is going to get 2, 3, 4 targets. In games that the offense is flowing, Amon St. Brown's moving the football, the run game's going. Sam Laporta's giving you that presence across the middle of the field. In those type of scenarios, we can see Jameson Williams really pop off. It's just he needs so much to go right for him to actually have that big game and enter your lineup.
Yeah, it's as gross as this sounds. He's not that different from like Quinshon Judkins, where you like have no idea where to start him. You know what I mean? Like Judkins has actually averaged more fantasy points per game than Jameson Williams at 11.0 versus 9.7. And Booty's highs have actually been higher as well. Like his big games have been bigger than Jameson Williams's big games. So as much as like that sounds like a disgusting comparison, and I'm not saying that I would actually prefer Booty rest of the season to Jameson Williams, that's kind of what he is though. Like he's like in deep leagues where you have a lot of flexes. Yeah, you like having guys like Jameson Williams who can give you those big performances, but like 4 out of the 6 games this year, you've been adamantly disappointed in what you've gotten from this guy.
Maybe this is take law because he was on my team. Again, this guy's not on my team, so don't call me biased in the comments. I traded this guy. But genuinely speaking, in what world should we be taking Jameson Williams over Wan'Dale Robinson?
I don't think you should take him over any world. I don't think you're biased for that at all. Jameson Williams isn't getting the targets. Wan'Dale Robinson is getting the targets. And it's not like Wan'Dale's getting disgusting, ugly targets.
He's had spike weeks.
Dart has been good, and Wan'Dale had a couple big plays this season as well. Yep. So, yeah, like Jameson Williams, for those of you guys that drafted him in like the 4th, 5th round, thinking he was going to have this breakout season, St. Brown and Laporta are playing too well for Jameson Williams to be carving out a large target share right now. If Laporta and St. Brown weren't playing well, then maybe Jameson Williams would be able to command more targets, but he's basically just a big play or bust kind of play at this point.
And hear me out. I've called this guy disgusting multiple times, but I do have to give him his flowers when he's playing this well. David Montgomery's genuinely been one of the best running backs in the league this year. And we already have reports from Dan Gamble that they want to also get him involved more.
Yeah, and neutral pass rate wise, I believe the Lions are like up there with like the Jets as like the most run heavy team in football. And it's understandable why, because Montgomery and GIbbs are very good and they are the engine of that offense. So for me, yeah, Jameson Williams, when the second you get a spike week out of a guy like this, you probably should sell him, especially when he's got a big name and he was drafted highly and that kind of thing. Like if you can sell him for Xavier Worthy, who is getting way more targets and way more usage than him, you can sell him for like a Marvin Harrison Jr., who's banged up right now, maybe a team that needs production right away. If you could sell him in this package deal, you could see for Brian Thomas makes sense. Jameson Williams plus Zay Flowers. I probably wouldn't do that one because DJ Moore and Terry McLaurin are kind of ass. But this one where you're going after Justin Jefferson using Jameson Williams, like all of those types of deals make sense. Pair him with a guy like the one I'll talk about in a second, who's coming off of a couple of big games, and go up and try and get somebody better. And the guy that I'm referring to is Rico Dowdle. Now, Rico Dowdle is clearly bar none, one of the best handcuffs in football. He's literally been the best running back in fantasy the last 2 games, and he should see an increased role once Chuba Hubbard is back on the field. And we've already gotten reports basically saying that they're going to be like co-starters. And I would imagine best case scenario is we're looking at a situation that is Charbonnet Walker-esque, where they're both going to have value. You could start both on any given week as top 36 type of running backs. And Hubbard obviously takes a hit because Dowdle is going to be more involved than he was before. But they just played the Dolphins and Cowboys. And Rico Dowdle was literally 200 plus scrimmage yards per game, the best running back in football the last 2 weeks. So if that's not incentive enough to take this guy who you probably got off of waivers or was stashed on your bench or something like that and turn him into an upgrade to your starting lineup in a significant manner, you should probably go ahead and do that. Like if you can take Rico Dowdle plus Matthew Golden, like you can see on the screen, for Nico Collins, if you can take Rico Dowdle straight for Chris Olave, if you can take Rico Dowdle and pivot him into a Trevion Henderson plus rest of season to give yourself some late season upside, if you could take Rico Dowdle plus Ricky Pearsall or something and go and get a significant contributor at wide receiver, maybe you can buy low on Garrett Wilson coming back from his injury or something. I think that those are the plays that I'm using Rico Dowdle for. And anytime you have spike weeks out of a guy who was like a waiver ad or something like that, you should probably take advantage of that and upgrade your starters.
Yeah, I agree tentatively. I think I'm higher on Rico Dowdle than you because I do think there could be a strong chance, honestly, with how he's playing. One more week of this, there's no way you can make Chuba Hubbard a co-starter with him. Like, genuinely.
No, maybe not. Like
no
I said, I think best case scenario for him is not necessarily the fantasy production, but the usage that Zach Charbonnet sees, which is like he actually outsnapped Kenneth Walker this week. And that I think is probably like a 55, 60% overall snap share for Rico Dowdle. To me is his ceiling as long as Chuba Hubbard is there.
Yeah, I snap, sure. I think in terms of an opportunity split, though, I can see Rico Dowdle being a 15 to 18 opportunity per game guy.
Maybe. I again, in principle, this guy's got
I agree in principle.
RB1 the last two games, so he's probably on the high for most of your league mates.
Yeah. He's a due diligence sell regardless because people are going to want Rico Dowdle. If someone's 1-5 right now or 2-4 and they see Rico Dowdle have 30 points in back-to-back weeks, you can attach Rico Dowdle to, I mean, let's just say Rico Dowdle plus Devontae Adams.
Vidal.
Well, I was going to say, can you attach Rico Dowdle to Devontae Adams and go get one of the top 4 wide receivers in fantasy right now?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, using Rico to be able to upgrade your starting lineup is kind of all the reason that I'm selling him. Because if you have him, generally you feel very good about what you have. It's just given the trade finder and like what he's actually going for on the open market, it feels like he's being treated right now as like a mid RB2 rest of season, which is not what he should be treated as. He should be treated as a high-end RB3 most likely in terms of what his value is because Hubbard is expected probably back this week. We'll see what happens there. But especially if he has another game as the starter, you can really sell a 1-5, a 2-4, an 0-6 team on trading for a guy like this.
So yeah, I'm a little bit higher on him than you. He's my RB23 rest of the season, but I kind of have a big cluster. I have him straight up ranked higher than Hubbard. And I think I'm the only guy on the site that has that.
Yeah, I personally don't think that's the case. I think Hubbard still will be the starter, but I do think it'll fluctuate week over week the way that it does for Charbonnet and Walker. That's kind of what my opinion of this backfield is going forward.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up materializing regardless. So sell off the RB1 overall hype. A guy that we both agree is a sell. And it pains us because we just had him on the skyrocketing video. We're very high on this guy rest of the season. We view him, top 15, top 16 level running back. But Cam Skattebo might be going for an RB1 level price tag in your league. So try.
Yeah, there's 4 reasons why I would look to shop Skattebo. Number 1, it was Tracy's first game back. I'm not saying that Tracy's going to be a major part of this backfield going forward, but we saw, for example, in Tennessee that in Tajay Spears' first game back, he wasn't very involved. And then in his second game back, he literally outsnapped Tony Pollard. I'm not saying that would happen, but it is possible that Tracy is a bigger part of this backfield going forward. So that's reason number 1. Reason number 2 is that he just scored 3 touchdowns. It's pretty easy to sell high on players that score 3 touchdowns the week before. Number 3, the Giants have the 9th hardest schedule for running backs rest of the season, including Washington, Minnesota, and Las Vegas in the playoffs, which are all top 10 defenses against fantasy running backs. Plus, they have at Denver, at Philly, and versus San Francisco the next 3 games as well. So this might be one of the hardest times, or the easiest time, to sell high on Cam Skattebo. And number 4, he can be very easily used right now to tier up to better options. Because like you said, he is pretty much going for RB1 price tags. If you can use him to go after Genty or Kyron or Henry or Javonte or big packages, even potentially to go get GIbbs or Saquon or Cook or something like that, there's guys that, Cam Skattebo plus Rico Dowdle, for example, how close does that get you to Saquon Barkley, Jahmyr Gibbs, or James Cook? Like that might get you there.
Well, that's what you might even be able to get something back on. Like, in all seriousness, I don't know why I whispered, by the way. That was kind of cringe. But in all seriousness, James Cook has his bye week. James Cook has had 2 bad games in a row. And James Cook might be on a team that maybe got off to a bad start. Like, for example, Badaki in our league is 0-6 with James Cook. Maybe he's just saying, hey, I cannot eat a week 7 bye week for James Cook. Cam Skattebo's given me so much production where even if I lose by a couple points per game in the long term, I'm willing to do that. I honestly think in some markets, you might be able to add a smaller piece than Rico Dowdle to get from Cam Skattebo to James Cook right now.
Yeah, no, it's definitely possible that you're going to be in that position. So again, I'm not saying to sell Cam Skattebo for like low-end RB2 price tags. No, he's being treated right now as like an RB1. So if you can get RB1 price tags for him, you should sell him for that because I view him as more of a high-end RB2, mid RB2 rest of the season because I do think, like I said, Tracy could be involved more. The Giants' schedule is pretty bad. Also, too, Skattebo, the way he runs, is maybe susceptible to more injuries and that kind of thing. That's kind of narrative-y, but it is maybe a factor.
Hey, I got a few concussions, so he runs exactly like I did.
Yeah, no, exactly. So Cam Skattebo, definitely shop him. Those are all of our trade targets kind of for this week. Make sure to tune in to tomorrow's video. If you guys are dynasty players, we're going to tackle 2026 first look at like the top 15, top 18 prospects and rookie drafts right now. That'll definitely be a fun conversation. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe, comment down below any of your thoughts, and make sure to check out all of our rest of season rankings, our trade calculator, our My Team's feature. It is the best tools out there to be able to make a lot of trades, make incremental gains, incremental profits on your teams. And by the end of the season, you have monsters that can absolutely take down fantasy championships. That's why we're the stock exchange. Me and Danny make trades left, right, and center. And by the end of the season, we take whatever hits we got, whatever misses we have, and hopefully our team looks a lot better. Like a lot of people in my league give me shit all the time, Danny, for looking at my draft and being like, dude, we should have just left him with this team. It's like, that was never going to happen because I sold players on the high and I bought players and I added players on waivers. So make sure you're out there, not just with the same team that you drafted. Make sure you're making moves, trying to upgrade your starting roster and your starting lineup. So with that being said, peace out. We'll talk to you soon.